The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the sports guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now,
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report, taping this on a Friday afternoon from the Bud Light Hotel in Indianapolis. Super Bowl week, and we are loaded with Colts fans and Giants fans. I don't feel very comfortable here in Indianapolis. Neither does our first guest from the Patriots. What is your exact title?
I'm president of the Patriots. Yeah.
That's a good title.
That's
President of the Patriots,
doesn't
Jonathan
really
Kraft.
mean much. Yeah, thanks, Bill.
You must not really totally like being in Indianapolis, I'm guessing.
Well, I like being here when it's the Super Bowl because
Right.
it means we're here. But we don't like coming here usually during the regular season, especially or the playoffs.
Right.
And when Peyton's healthy, or when Bill Polian was here. Bill's a strong. Bill is so powerful that he cast an aura over that building. It just was not hospitable to us.
Right. And we had 2 years in a row, two of the three toughest losses in Patriots history. I think the 1976 is still in the top three. Sugar Bear Hamilton, roughing the passer, all that stuff. But, you know, everybody talks about Super Bowl 42, obviously an apocalypse for Patriot fans. But the year before in Indianapolis, that was the game we should have won. That was the game we gave away.
The AFC Championship game where at halftime we were winning by 20 or 21. We were winning. It was 20.
20-3 maybe? Or, yeah, 20.
I think
20,
we were winning by 20.
23-3?
Something like
Yeah,
that.
something like
we
that.
were winning. I think it was 23-3. We were winning by 20 points. And I remember the people we were sitting with said, "Oh, this is great. We're going to the Super Bowl." And I said, "We're in Indy. We're playing Peyton. That's 4 minutes for Peyton if he starts to click." And unfortunately, I was right.
And that would have been a championship because the next game was Grossman and the Bears. I just think we would have beaten them. It was really the Super Bowl, that game. The Giants outplayed us, though. Like, I still, as much as that game killed me, like, you got to hand it to them. Like, they played really well in that game, and the Patriots didn't play well.
The Giants beat us. And I think one of the big factors was that season when we would play people, once you got through the halfway mark, they were intimidated by the Patriots when they stepped on the field. So whether rightly or wrongly, teams were intimidated, and I think that worked to our advantage. But we played the Giants week 16, week 17 in the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
Last game, our 16th game, week 17. And they hung with us. I mean, they could have won that game. And so I think when we stepped on the field in the Super Bowl, 4 weeks earlier, 5 weeks earlier, they had played us and stuck with us. There was no intimidation factor. And our guys were really feeling the weight of what had been a very long season with a lot of expectations going in that only built over the course of the season. And I think we went in tight and they went in loose, and they weren't intimidated, and they beat us.
And you had a bad feeling that whole week, right?
Yeah, I didn't think I wasn't thinking that the day was going to turn out well that whole week. I thought when you were around the team, you felt that we had sort of, I think, just reached the breaking point. It had been a very long, tiring season. We had the thing with the Jets at the start of the season when Mangini and Tannenbaum and all of them did what they did, and
I like how you put that, did what they did.
Well, they did what they did because, look, we were technically violating the rules, and we deserved whatever
the penalty was.
Whatever
right.
the penalty was. So I'm not saying. I just think. Anyhow, we had that, and Randy had joined the team that year, and once we had gone 5-0, 6-0, expectations that were high at the start of the year got very high. But the team spent so much emotionally the first 6 weeks of the season supporting Bill and the organization, and then this kept building. And I just think by the time we got to Arizona, we had reached the tipping point.
You'd basically played 11 straight playoff games because from like week 7, week 8 on, there's the bullseye every week. Everybody's trying to end the streak now. Everybody's going against. Hey, if we lose in Baltimore, is that Do we win the Super Bowl?
I was just about. I think we might. And you know who? Ironically, that whole Baltimore thing, you can pin it on Rex, because Rex is the guy that called the timeout. They had won the game.
Oh yeah.
It was that fourth down, and we had thrown an incompletion, but it turned out that a timeout had been called from the Ravens sideline, and the timeout had been called by Rex,
Wow.
and he was the coordinator, and it was a little bit of a scandal. So he cost his team that game. But who knows? Maybe he cost us the Super Bowl.
Walk me through that night, you and your dad and your mom and the whole family, just leaving Arizona that night. 19-0 has just gone out the window in the span of 5 minutes.
I think I had the feeling most of the week, but when we scored with 2:30 whatever left to go, we had been playing pretty good defense that game, and that whole season, our defense, when it had needed to come up with a stop, did, and we kicked off, and I think we pinned them. I think we tackled them at their 18 or 19.
Yeah.
They had a long field.
And they had scored 4 points. They needed 7.
And they converted a fourth down on a running play, as I recall. So we had 1 fourth down early. And then Asante let the pick go through his hands, and then Rodney. Yeah, they made the plays. They beat us when the chips were down. They were the better team. When we were leaving the stadium that night, I think there was more a feeling, not so much for ourselves, but when you were we were fans of the Patriots, season ticket holders growing up, sitting up in the old Schaefer, Sullivan, Foxborough Stadium in the 200 level in the corner. And to think that the Patriots could be the team that had gone 19-0, I think for us, we were disappointed for the fan base. That's a stamp in history. To be the first team that went 19-0 would have been something special. So it wasn't so much a personal disappointment as it was letting the fan base down. That was something we really wanted to do for New England, something that no one else could ever say they were the first at if we had accomplished it.
And I wrote that this week about the Clippers, because the Clippers now are a contender. I'm a season ticket holder, and everybody thinks would be the strangest thing ever if the Clippers made the finals. And I'm like, look, I'm a lifelong Patriot fan. There's nothing stranger than the Patriots winning 3 Super Bowls in 4 years. The odds of this were 1,000,000 to 1. Yeah. The team we grew up with was it was a joke. It was the worst owned franchise in the league. They had the worst stadium in the league. It always was going to move this place, that place, wherever. The fact that it's turned this much has been amazing.
Yeah.
You must kind of look back at this sometimes and be like, holy mackerel.
We feel good. We love football. I mean, when we bought the team, we had spent literally since '71 when the stadium opened, when Schaefer Stadium opened. I was 7, and my dad and my younger brothers and I started going to the games. I think between '71 and when we bought the team in '94, might have missed 6 home games. And during that time, there had only been 1 home playoff game. I think it was '78 against the Houston Oilers, '78 or '77 during the Love You Blue era, and the Oilers came in and beat us. And
I went to that game.
You went, yeah.
Earl Campbell.
And so did I. Earl
it was
Campbell.
38-10 or something.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Fairbanks had left though. There was a weird stink on that team.
That's true.
Yeah.
But he should never have left. And
no,
that
he never
was
should
part
left.
of Patriots lore. Once things go right, they're going to go wrong.
So we had a similar childhood, because my 70s was just every year the Patriots were the favorite, and then something horrible would happen, and then we would not make the Super Bowl, and that's what I grew up with basically.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah.
So for us, we would travel around to other cities and go to NFL games and say, why isn't football like this in New England? We loved it so much, and we loved our team. And if there was an opportunity to do that, we wanted the chance. We just wanted to bring that level of football to New England. We just feel very fortunate, though, to be in the position that we're in. And if you had said, you get 1 Super Bowl championship in the first 18 years, this is our 18th season, we would have taken it and been happy. To be in our 6th Super Bowl since we bought the team, 5th in the last 11 years.
Everyone forgets Desmond Howard.
Yeah, and we should have won that game.
Won that game.
And Bill was distracted that week, and unfortunately.
I've never forgiven him for it.
Yeah,
I know you're a little biased because your dad and Mr. Parcells didn't exactly live on great
I don't
terms.
think Bill and I are on good terms now. I'm not sure he was a big fan of mine either. And,
right. But people do forget when the famous kickoff to Desmond Howard, which isn't so famous anymore because everyone thinks the Packers blew that game out. Their defensive linemen were on the sideline with oxygen masks. We had the lead. Did we have the lead, or were we within 3?
We were.
It was a game. It was a 3-point game.
Yeah, it was within 3. But here's the thing.
And it kicked it right to Howard.
Troy Brown, who had been really great on special teams all year, had something a little tweaked. He wanted to go.
Yeah.
Bill decided to sit him for a kid named Hassan Graham.
I remember.
And Hassan Graham was in the. He ran right by Hassan Graham,
right.
And that would have been Troy Brown. And something tells me, and Hassan Graham was a nice guy. Troy Brown makes that play.
I don't think the Patriots were better than the Packers that year, but I think we could have won that game.
I think that's true.
I mean, really, that game had broken pretty nicely. So then the next few years, your family was a little rocky because you had the Parcells fallout. Then and as you know, the local media can be a little tough on the local teams. Then it became, Kraft drove Parcells out.
Yeah.
Then Pete Carroll, look at this guy, he's a joke, he's a puppet for the players. Then you had the Hartford Stadium, are they moving, are they staying, all that stuff. And then finally, everything kind of said, whoa.
We got a little bug on the BS set. But here's the thing. Pete Carroll had 2 winning seasons, 2 playoff seasons, and an 8-8 season.
Yep.
But Parcells, the media loved him, and rightfully so. I mean, he knows how to deal with the media, and they love him, and he's also an accomplished coach.
Well, it was also the Boston sports thing. There had not been a coach like him in any team we had since Auerbach.
Definitely, that's definitely true. But what you can see in 2020 hindsight that we think we understood at the time, but I'm not sure the media did. The NFL changed in '94 when we bought the team, and it was the reason we paid what we paid for it, was because that was the first year of the salary cap.
Right.
And now it wasn't about how much money you had or how good you were as a coach with the fear factor. It was you had to be a great coach, but as a club, you weren't going to be your ability to compete wasn't determined by how much money you had. It was going to be determined by how well you could spot talent that fit your system, sign it up under the rules of the cap, and then coach it. And for a lot of guys who had been 20-year football guys, they didn't fully understand the idea of money now being a limited resource and thinking strategically how to allocate it. And I think that's really where at the root of the issues with Bill were. And to be fair to Bill, it was a new world for him, and it was just thrust upon guys. Go back and look at all of the names who had pretty good success prior to then as GMs or as coaches who couldn't make the migration. And I think Pete understood it, but what was really great about Belichick, and that was what was great for us about the 96 season, we saw how players responded to Belichick, and they loved to be coached by him. But when we would talk to Bill offline, and this is where Robert, his gut is just always right, Bill understood that the salary cap gave a coach like him who could process numbers and think about value and think about how to structure a defense that other people weren't running, so that the types of players you'd want, i.e. a 3-4, weren't as valuable as 4-3 players at the time, and you could do more with your money on both sides of the ball. And the only reason he didn't become our coach in '97 was he had a long history with Parcells, and things had gotten just so tenuous for us. It was more important to just clean house and start fresh.
Not hire the guy who had the ties to him.
And it was a mistake. But that's where my father will tell you, because when my dad says his gut is right, I stop questioning him. If the analytics are telling us something else, if his gut tells him something, it's right. But at the time, his gut was saying, let's hire Bill. I thought it was a good idea, not as strongly as Robert did. But in his head, he's like, he's been with Parcells for so long, and this is so poisoned. This atmosphere isn't good. We got to just start fresh.
Right.
And it was a mistake, and we corrected it 3 years later.
I got to ask you about the whole family situation for owning a team, because we see this in all sports. You have the guy who has the money, and then a lot of times he puts his kids like in these great positions, and the kids aren't qualified to run the team. They don't really know what they're doing. You're actually qualified and you do a good job, but I would almost say you're an anomaly for the legacy kids. Like, what do you think? I just got attacked by the bug again. What do you think? What are some of what could you see as some of the issues of somebody being thrown into that job if they're not prepared for it?
Well, I was fortunate, and I only spend probably I'm president of the Kraft Group, too, so I run all of our operating businesses. They all report to me, including the Patriots.
But, I mean, you were really well educated.
I was fortunate. I got to work
stuff.
at Bain. I worked in business. I worked in our factories. We bought the team when I was 29, and I had already spent time at Bain. I had gone to Harvard Business School. I had spent my summers working the overnight shift in paper mills in South Carolina. I understood. I think if you don't have a real-world understanding of how businesses work, of how you want to think about things, if it's just every kid's dream is to run a sports team.
Right.
And I was fortunate in that I wasn't born into that element of it.
Well,
and
you guys
like
have always
business.
written it like a business.
Right, and we had to because we paid a lot for it, and we needed to make things happen, and then we needed to build Gillette, which in the early years spent a lot of time on. And I think family ownership in any business is great as long as there isn't a sense of entitlement. I know how lucky and fortunate I am to have the father that I have, and in life, a lot of things come down to luck. So I'm very fortunate to be in the position I'm in, and I would say I'm in the office 6 a.m. most days, and I get home well after 8 if I'm not traveling.
I would say you're one of the rare guys who could actually leave his own family and go run another team, and it would be like, oh my God, he ditched his family but you actually have the chops to do that at this point.
You're very
You would
kind.
never do that.
No, I would not do that.
What a great story that would be. I'm pretty sure that would lead WEI on the Drive Time show, or the 98.5.
It might, it might, I guess, but that's not happening. Along with my wife, my dad is my best friend.
We're very similar that way. Yeah. So you think the family owns the Pats? At some point, your dad turns it over. You run the Pats, and it's just decades of this.
Well, I like other business. I don't ever see spending full time, and Robert doesn't spend full time at this either. We're fortunate. We got a great group of people. But when we built Gillette, we moved the corporate staffs of all our other businesses down there.
Right.
So we can operate everything out of one building, which when we first bought the Patriots, our corporate headquarters, we had a couple of floors of an office building in Boston. Now everyone's down there, and I don't ever see spending full time at football. But it's a big passion of ours, and I think it'll be in the family, we hope anyhow, for decades to come, and I think we have it structured so that my generation and then the generation after can hopefully, if my kids and my brother's kids still are into it, that it can stay in the family, because we aspire to be what people like the Maras, the Tishes, who were fortunate to play this weekend, the Rooneys, the Hallises. It's what separates the NFL from all these other leagues, and it's what's made it great. And if we have a little role in that going forward, I think we would like to do that. At least my dad and my brothers and I, our generations like it, and hopefully our kids are into it too.
Do you think it's healthy to just run a team and that's all you do? I mean, it seems like you guys have spread out some other interests, and it actually seems kind of healthy.
I think it gives you perspective. We love business. If it was just owning a team, I'd be bored. And I don't, because, I think a lot of people, I don't add any value. Robert doesn't add any value. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean once the season starts and Bill's got his 53 guys and he's doing it,
you're spectators.
We don't talk about what plays. Where I think we add value is in the offseason, the salary cap. We have debates about Bill has to put the value on the talent and what he wants to do. We don't, I think we're knowledgeable about football, but as educated fans like you are, we're not. My dad played in college. I played in high school. But where we add value now that there's a cap is when you think about structuring contracts and how you want to allocate money. So when we have the give and take with Bill and Nick Caserio now, before that Scott, we add value like that. And then on the business side of the team, I think being in other businesses, we're in manufacturing, we're in distribution, we do real estate development. There are things you learn and new technology. I mean, we love what you're doing. I'm so impressed with. And we were the first pro sports team. We bought the team in '94, and in February of '94 we closed. 30 days later we launched Patriots.com. We beat the 4 leagues to their websites. Now we were way too early.
Yeah.
We were doing nightly video in '97. So and we got that because we were investing in the web and in tech outside of that. And so in that regard, I do think it's healthy. And I think people who are the business people, the owners, if they don't have the pedigree of football to really understand it, you're probably not adding a lot of value if you're sitting there at practice or going to coaches' meetings and trying to coach. It's not. And, there are a couple guys. I know Jerry gets criticized. That's not a slap at Jerry. Jerry played college football, big-time college football. Jerry knows the game. It's not like a guy that owned car dealerships.
Yahoo, yeah.
No, it's not, and I think he gets improperly criticized. He knows the game of football. He really does. I don't know who else.
He could still have a GM that he listens to.
I don't know. But so I do think it's healthy, and we're always looking for new business opportunities.
What would you do differently with the stadium? You built that. It went up in 2002. And it was state-of-the-art then. I feel like state-of-the-art is now shifting because of, just where things are going with wireless and things like that. What would you add if you could have done it over again? You're doing it now.
Well, we're proud of what we built because I actually think it stood the test of time. And we added LED HD boards 3 years ago. So after Jerry, we actually have the largest high def LED video boards in the country after Jerry. And so we know we have to keep investing. We own it privately. We're proud of the fact we built it without personal seat licenses and without a nickel of public money.
Yep.
I think that from our perspective, when we thought about building the stadium, we thought about wiring the seats, but we knew the world would go wireless. We need, as a league, I chair the league's digital media committee, actually, and one of the big things, that
sounds like a fun committee.
It is, and we're doing some cool stuff.
I want to be in the committee.
Dan Snyder and I co-chair that committee, and one of the things that we're really wrestling with is how to make sure that experience in the stadium is different than the one you can have at home in a positive way, and ultimately the smartphone is going to be the device because maybe we'll mic up 10 players and you can only listen to them over your phone. Maybe there'll be some pretty unique camera angles and maybe even video from the locker room at halftime or you only get in stadium. But in order to make that happen, we're going to have to solve the Wi-Fi issue of 70,000 people trying to. And today,
it's impossible.
It's difficult. It's possible, but probably at $20 million a stadium. I think over the next 2 to 3 years, that number will come down. I think there's some technologies on the horizon. So sometime in the next couple of years, I think you'll see us do something as a league. Hopefully we will. And Roger's really focused on this too. He understands it. Where we give every stadium enough Wi-Fi so that people who want to use the smartphones to enhance their in-stadium experience in ways we will not make available outside of the stadium will be there. And that probably is a big next challenge for us as a league because we know that experience at home is pretty good.
It feels like we're in the early stages of this because, just think about how the internet worked. In 1999, it took forever to download any video, and now you can watch any video anywhere, and I'm sure at some point they'll figure out the Wi-Fi thing. But this goes back to something at the Sloan Conference, which you attended last year. Mark Cuban and I got in an argument on the panel about it, and his take was, I don't want people looking at their phone. They're at a game. I want them looking at the video screen. I want them looking at the court. I don't want to make it easier for them to just look down and get lost in their phone. So how do you find that balance?
I think I agreed with you. I think I told Mark that I thought
you were on
basketball.
The panel too.
I was on the panel with you guys. I guess I wasn't that memorable.
I forgot. No, I just remember arguing with him.
But I think football and basketball are different. You go to a regular season basketball game, you want to get lost in all the entertainment, because it's. I know you love basketball, but a lot of those people are going for
the spectacle,
of it. And then and by the way, those NBA teams, a lot of them do a great job producing it. Including the Celtics. Going to a game at the TD Bank North Garden is very different than what you and I experienced as kids.
That's very true.
At the old Garden. And it's not just the big three not playing, it's everything that's going on around it. But I think it's evolved and it works for the NBA. Those 8 home games in football matter. And I think if people can have their cell phone, not to be checking their email, but to be getting ancillary content to the game that enhances their experience. You want to be checking stats. You want to be looking at fantasy. If you can listen to the line of scrimmage, like really listen and hear what's going on while you're sitting there, none of the expletives deleted like you get at home, or if you can listen to the middle linebacker, or if you could listen to the coach-to-quarterback communication, 15 seconds
delayed. That would be exclusive to the stadium?
Right, in stadium. Yeah. Would you like that?
Yeah.
Would it enhance the experience?
I would argue that a bigger competitor for you guys on Sundays is fantasy football. And I know you can't talk about gambling, but anybody who gambles or just people who want to watch 8 games at once versus just here I'm stuck with this game and that's it, and I don't know what's going on with these other games.
Right, but you know what? You could also give them the red zone in stadium for free on their phones.
Well, now you're talking.
But we have to do that. That's why I think when you're at a Mavs whatever game, Mavs, I won't say Heat, Mavs Cavs game
you don't
on
care
a
about
Wednesday night, you don't really care what's going on around the league.
Yeah.
And I play fantasy NBA basketball because I got a 9-year-old who's an addict, but I wouldn't care.
Right.
But I think you go to an NFL game, for whatever reason, people are interested in what's going on around the league.
For a variety of reasons.
Financial interest, fantasy football, whatever it is. I think if we can do that, it'll make the experience just better.
Well, you have some sway in this league now. Stop this 18-game schedule. Don't let this happen. This is the worst idea ever. We're good with 16. It's enough games. You never want to overkill something.
I never would think of you as an old fuddy-duddy guy.
I just want 16. 16's good.
I get it.
It's a good length.
I get it. I
know you guys make more money from 18, but it's like, wait, especially with all the concussion research and stuff like that, like, why would you want these guys to play more games?
Two separate issues, in my opinion.
Why?
Concussions. Wait, no, let me just explain.
All right.
The concussion issue is an issue that needs to get solved, whether we're playing 8 games, 10 games,
True.
2 games. And that's going to be technology and science, and really, because there's too much science out there, and we as a league are spending millions of dollars, legitimately millions of dollars, and we haven't gotten there yet, but we're completely committed to solving the equipment side of this, or getting much better at it, getting better constantly, so that we eliminate that concussion risk for players. It's critical.
Why do you think it took like 2 years longer than maybe it should have for that train to get going? Is it just not that educated enough about it yet, or? Because, like, looking back, you think, like, man, why didn't this get going in 05?
Why didn't it get going 20 years ago?
I don't know.
When you and I, no, I mean, you're right. I mean, it's always too late.
It's a hindsight thing. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always too late. But I'll tell you this, Roger, and I think Roger has been so consistent as commissioner. He really has been, and he's talked about from the start that we are going to raise the level of player safety. He said from the start that was a priority, and I think he's put time, money, and energy into doing that, and it's not hollow words. He also said that everybody across the league was going to be held to a higher standard in terms of the privilege of being in the league and the integrity factor, and I think he's done it with players, but also people who aren't players. Coaches, owners have been subject to pretty substantial fines, and rightfully so. And I think Roger backs it up big time, and I think he's focused on it, and my guess is we'll see huge improvements over the next 3 to 5 years. On the 18-game schedule, it's going from 16-4 to 18-2. It's not going from 16-4 to 18-4.
Right.
And I realize the starters aren't playing all those other games, but I will tell you this. Season ticket holders unequivocally are demanding that they want 18-2, not 16-4. if we do go to 18-2, we're going to have to do it in partnership with our union. Prior to this labor deal, we had the right unilaterally to go to 18-2. And if Roger had wanted to, he could have imposed that. We had the unilateral right in the old deal. He decided not to do it, even though we were heading into a contentious labor situation already where he could have used it to force their hand, because he wanted the players to be partners in that decision. And you won't see us go to that unless the players are comfortable that roster sizes, that the rules around health and safety, and then ultimately the dollars, because the dollars will be a part of it, but part of it is creating jobs for players, and they get the majority of the money that we generate, that we will generate from that, because the majority will be media if we do it. And they'll be our partners in doing it. It will not be forced on anybody.
Let's quickly throw this to a commercial for our sponsor, Bud Light. We'll be back after this.
This portion of the BS Report is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of Super Bowl 46. The hottest parties in Indy are happening at the Bud Light Hotel, and you can check out all the action at the Bud Light page on Facebook. Bud Light, it's the sure sign of a good time. Here we go.
Back with Jonathan Kraft, the president of the New England Patriots. We were talking about the 18-game schedule, and, you know, you don't worry about this at all just from the standpoint of you have things really good right now. It's the most popular league by far, unquestionably, more popular than the other three sports combined. Why tinker with this? Why not just keep it at 16?
I think you always, whether it's 18 games or anything, you have to constantly be thinking about how you tinker with your business and not leave it static to improve it.
Well, I do agree with that.
If we don't think it'll improve the overall package of what the NFL is as an entirety, I don't just mean as a media product, we won't do it. We absolutely won't do it. A lot of thought, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of consultation with all of our partners will go into it if we do it.
Did you think about 2 bye weeks maybe? 16 games, 2 bye weeks, so it's an 18-week season?
I think everything is on the table, and that might absolutely be part of it. Expanded rosters, an IR that sort of mirrors the PUP situation where it's not a season-long IR, maybe. There's a lot of rules and a lot of things. That's the when we get to the level of really talking about this seriously, the competition committee, as well as what I'm sure will be a special committee that Roger would put together to deal with all the issues, and I'm sure there'd be union people on it and owners and club officials who are on the football side, and we'd consult with our network partners, and it would only happen if it was a net positive for everybody, and that we felt that there were no incremental risks to the players from doing it.
Let me ask you a question that you won't answer. So let's say Brady is in this situation. Brady's had 3 neck surgeries in 2 years. We went 2-14 last year. We have the number 1 pick in the draft. Brady has 2 doctors that says, they've cleared me, I'm ready to play. Yet it's Tom Brady. He's won us 3 Super Bowls. He's been the guy for 11 years. He helped build Gillette Stadium. What do you do?
Fortunately, we're not in that position, but I will say this.
Yeah, see, I knew you'd duck that
I
one.
will say,
it's a tough one.
I'll say this. Tom's a member of our family for life, and that's not BS. It's not BS.
Thank you.
Tom,
Good plug.
I really believe this. 30 years from now, he's a part of our family, meaning the Kraft family.
Right.
I think he's a part of New England sports family as extended family, but he's a member of our family. We had a situation with Tom going into last season, much like Peyton. I mean, Tom and Peyton's deals were both going to be up at the same time. Ours got a lot more attention. We got ours done a year early.
Yeah.
They didn't get Peyton done. Peyton had a much bigger franchise number coming down, and I could argue that the Colts probably had more of a reason to try to get it done. Maybe Peyton didn't the year we did it. But I think we were able to sit with Tommy and structure something that made sense for both sides. And I think both sides, when and if the day comes that something like that is going to happen, are going to have to be smart. But I think there's a really strong bond there. And I'd like to think that we'd always be able to talk to each other when when anything came up and be able to deal with it.
So I don't have to worry about watching them in the 2014 San Francisco 49ers?
I'm sure if you asked the Colts, they would not want to have the first pick in the draft this year. You just don't want it. There are too many other ways of finding guys, and you don't know. At least that pick now you can handle financially. Before, look what it did to the Raiders. It just in every. What I don't get personally, if I'm a veteran in this league, the money that's going to go to the players is the money that's going to go to the players. The veterans who succeed in this league work so hard, put so much into it, and deserve it. And I would make the case that the rookies.
They should not be guaranteed as much money.
Even more tightly
now it's
slotted,
okay.
But I'm not. No, it works. It works for the. Look, the union and the agents decided what was right. You just see how much goes into those guys who succeed in this league, and a lot of them who weren't expected to succeed when the draft happened, when they came out, or when they were on. Look at Wes Welker.
Right.
Wes Welker, undrafted kid. Victor Cruz, undrafted kid. Sterling Moore, the kid on our team who knocked out the pass against Lee Evans. Undrafted kid.
By the way, one of the great plays of Patriots history.
Thank God for Sterling.
Really great play.
I thought it was over. I was sitting.
I did too. There was maybe 1/5 of a second.
Yeah.
We're like, it's over.
You were watching on TV, so you could see it. So I was
Seemed
watching.
Like he caught it.
Bledsoe was sitting to my left, and when I saw the pass get thrown and I saw him catch it, and I didn't see, I'm like, I put my head down and I sort of knocked Drew, and I just said it's over. And I said I can't believe it's going to end this way, meaning the season. And then I heard the crowd cheer, and Drew's like, the kid just knocked the ball out. And I was like, what? And I look up, and it's an awesome story.
What kind of reception did Drew get that day? I thought that was interesting. He came
reception.
Back,
and he was back this year. We inducted him into the Patriots. When you're back in Boston, you have to come to the hall at Patriot Place,
I'm dying
presented
to go to
by
that.
Raytheon.
Oh yeah. Like your sponsor plug there.
Well,
good.
No, it's because we do a lot of math and science with interactive exhibits. School kids come throughout the year.
I'm dying to see
And we use football as a platform to teach math and science. It's pretty cool. And our partners at Raytheon, who just want more engineers in this country, have been unbelievable partners. But we inducted Drew in. He was the first year he was eligible. And so at the opening game, he walked out on the field the response was just, remember the Drew, and he deserves it because
people love that guy.
I did some interview this week where someone called him the Walter Pipp, the Wally Pipp of the Patriots.
That's ridiculous.
I was like, that's absurd.
Yeah.
He is the first very large building block of the foundation of what football has become in New England, and he's right there at the base. It was built on him. He gave it really since Jim Plunkett. I love Steve Grogan, but in terms of a drafted,
I love the Grog as well.
I love Grogan. Grogan, one tough dude, but as a draft choice since Jim Plunkett, I don't think there had ever been that type, it renewed
Our team,
your faith.
The left tackle was the most famous, the left guard was the most famous person who ever played for us. And that was the Patriots.
Hoggy Hanna.
Our left guard.
And so now you had this big foundation block, and it was Drew, and the fans know it. It was, and we did something before the AFC Championship game that night at my dad's house, where we had Drew, we had Ty Law, we had Troy Brown, we had Teddy Bruschi, just do a panel for a bunch of our close friends and partners. We had a dinner party, and they did this panel. And it was great to hear all those guys talk about how 01 Drew Bledsoe, because the locker room was very loyal to him back, if he had wanted to tank that team, he could have when he came back. And instead, he was a great teammate to everybody. He was helpful to Tommy. You knew he wasn't happy. He didn't let it affect things. And then he came into that AFC Championship game when Tommy rolled his ankle.
Came off the bench.
The first half, came off the bench, touchdown pass to David Givens, won the game for us.
Yeah.
And so he's huge. And the fans remember that, and the fans love him.
I'm glad. I actually wish I had gone to that game.
Huge ovation. You don't come.
I know. I'm
Only
stuck
Clippers
in LA.
games.
I got kids
Jesus.
now. Let's talk about your dad's year here. Starts out with the lockout. He becomes. It sounded like there were basically 3 owners. And I was mad at all of these owners, by the way, as an NFL fan, because I wanted football, and I was really scared. And it felt like I just felt like the owner side was being greedy. Seems like it worked out for the most part, although I kind of feel like you won that labor deal. I know you can't say that, but man, it seems like you got a good deal out of that whole thing. You do the deal, and then you do the TV deal afterwards.
Yeah, but the players get 55% of the TV deal, and that was the point. Players get, let me say that again, the players get 55%
of a lot of money.
Of a lot of money. And they, by the way, they deserve it. So
yes.
And the other thing the players got, remember, the season starts. After the season starts, this was critical to the players and their health. There were only 14 padded practices allowed once the season starts. 14 padded practices. And in the back half of the year, the restrictions on it make it so that you really have 2 the last 6 weeks of the season, or 3. And that's it.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody got what was important to them. I think the players, I think the economics of the game were readjusted so that the high margin dollars like television go disproportionately to the players because they provide that content. The lower in the old formula, we shared every dollar equally. Now the high margin dollars, the players got a disproportionate share of. But like in our team store, when we sell a T-shirt for whatever it is, $20, and our cost of goods is, $11 or whatever it is, and then you got labor and you got rent in the store, that you're making $4 or $5 on that $20. Giving them more than 50%, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
And I think the players saw that and they understood it, and the players also understood that we need to continue to build new stadiums, and they agreed to a way where they're real partners in that, but we have to generate a certain return from the new stadiums, so they get it. And it's hard for the media to describe the whole deal in that regard, but trust me, I really believe that was one of those deals where it was a win-win-win. Players, owners, fans, everybody got what they wanted, and 1 + 1 + 1 = 5.
You saw that. I mean, if you guys had missed games, you know how mad everybody would. I mean, you must sense that, right?
And you referenced my dad's role in that. I'm going to tell you something. My mom got sick at the middle of March.
Right.
And from the middle of March to when she passed away in July, he never came to the office. Came to the office maybe twice for no time. He basically lived at her bedside.
Yeah.
And my mother was a huge Patriot fan. She wasn't a football. She had never been to a Patriots game until we bought the team. My brothers and I and my dad didn't miss games. My mother used those free Sundays to go do the things none of us would do with her.
Right.
And she was keenly interested in the lockout while she was sick, not because she cared about our business from the business standpoint or that she was going to miss games because it wouldn't have mattered that much to her. But what she would say to my dad is, look, too many people in this country are going to be lost without that game. The people that just, the people who really rely on it, and it's their source of entertainment for 6 months, and it's their passion, who don't have a lot of other things in their lives. And I mean that because she'd look at people and she'd say to my dad, she's like, you know how to get this done, go solve it. You can leave me, go solve that. I want you to go take care of that because too many people love it. And that was the only time he would leave her bedside. And it's why she passed away on a Wednesday morning, very early in the morning. That Thursday, we voted to ratify the deal in Atlanta.
Really,
and it
was
took
that
through
quick?
the weekend. Yeah, and I went down because anyhow. But that my dad in that famous picture with Jeff Saturday, it was during what in the Jewish religion is called the Shiva period. And because it was what my mother wanted my father to do at the end, and I think she gave him the strength. And I think when he went into the room, people maybe knew what he was dealing with, so the BS went out of it. And he just has a way when he's in a room to listen to both sides. And he look, John Mara was huge, Roger, Jeff Pash, and then on DeMorris' side, Jeff Saturday, Dominic Foxworth from the Ravens. They were all huge. But I think because of what my dad was going through, he was able to zero in on what was important and tell the lawyers just to get out of the room. He didn't have the time to deal with it. And he was doing it for my mother. And unfortunately, she didn't get to see the end result of it, but she knew. She was coherent in her last hours or last 24 hours, and she knew that it was on the cusp of getting done, and it made her smile.
Well, it must be strange for you just being her son. These past 2 weeks, she's mentioned now as the subplot of these games. And you hear these talking heads on radio shows or TV shows, and they're like, I think one of the reasons the Patriots are going to win is because of the MHK, and that's galvanized this team, and that's your mom. It's just got to be weird, right?
From my mother, I think what would matter more, I mean, she'd want the Patriots to win. She would never want to take away from what the players do. She knows how hard those guys work. My mother loved the players, and they, I think, loved her back. But she loved the players because her whole life, she raised us. She had us when she was very young. By the time she was 23, they had three boys in diapers, no money. And, you know, she raised kids at a time where smart women were leaving the home, the late 60s, early 70s, and she could have done what she wanted. And she was a great mother to us, but we were basically all grown up by the time she was in her late 30s, and she took the rest of her life really just trying to figure out how she could help people in our community, but also around the world. And she spent her life doing that, not just writing checks. She didn't show up for photo ops, but actually going places, wearing jeans and T-shirts, and just doing whatever she could do to make an impact. And what she loved about the NFL and our players was that there were these guys who, a lot of whom came from circumstances or environments where they weren't taught the way we were as young kids about giving back. And she loved getting to know them, their wives, their kids. And then when she did, she'd say to them, what matters to you? You know, did you grow up in a Y or a Boys and Girls Club? Or the grandmother that raised you, how did she pass away? Was it cancer? Was it diabetes? You have a platform. You can take this profession that you've been fortunate enough to be in back in your home community or here in New England and use it to improve the lives of other people. And because I think they viewed her as a mother, not somebody whose family owned the team, but she cared about them. She knew about them, their kids, never talked to them about football. She built up a connection with a lot of them. And I think in that regard, the strength of her spirit means something to them, but they get 100% of the credit for what they do on the field.
Yeah.
100%. That's them. And my mother would be bummed out about, know, she. Anyhow, the players are awesome. We got great guys on our team.
The thing about sports, though, is you never know what it's going to be, but there's always going to be factors that galvanize a team. And it could be 3 or 4 things in the same season. It does seem like this has become one of the things. And, you know, another thing is your dad's, he's grieving. He lost his wife, and I'm sure they want to win for him, too.
All that's true. And I think they understand the fact that they're wearing my mother's initials. I do think they take that very seriously in that they're representing in a different way than they normally represent our family in the region. I think they take that to heart because it's not just initials. Other than the rookies, and I think they've heard a lot about her, they knew her, and I think it does matter because a lot of the guys really loved her.
So when Cundiff missed that kick for a split second, you didn't think maybe? I mean, that was pretty weird.
Yeah,
it was a 32-yarder,
and it was going wide from the second it left his foot. I haven't seen that happen too often. Since high school, anyhow.
My condolences to everything your family's gone through, but I'm sure this has been a nice distraction going to the Super Bowl and just getting caught up in the whole thing, and that's our lives are going to be different for the same way anybody who's lost someone. And you know what? I've said, my dad said it at the rally on Sunday. And it's like when the Red Sox finally won, people ran out and went to grave sites and they talked to relatives who they had suffered through Red Sox games with. And I think one of the things my mom symbolizes is that we watch sports as a community, as families, as immediate families, but communities as an extended family. And a lot of people
in the last year who are Patriot fans or have lost loved ones since we last won.
Yeah.
And when they're going to watch us on this run, and hopefully Sunday works out well, if it does, they'll think about those loved ones they used to share the Patriots with. And I think that's the other thing that in sports is the one thing that really resonates in that way. I think when you have a team that you rooted for like that, and you want to share it with somebody who isn't present, who you shared that experience with when they were present, and so I think people get that, and I know I do, and I think that's part of what resonates with this.
I totally agree. And actually, I wrote a column after 9/11 because after 9/11, people there was that whole angle of, well, this puts sports in perspective. Sports is silly. And it's like, yeah, it does put sports in perspective, but actually it doesn't because, I think that belittles sports. Sports does so many things. And as you said, it brings your family together. It gives you these ties that you have to people that you might not normally have ties with. Just the experience of being in a stadium with 60,000 people rooting for the same thing, that means something.
In our stadium, I know for a fact that there are, in a couple of pockets, I know where billionaire hedge fund managers sit in the stands next to guys who are blue-collar workers,
Right.
not in the club, in the stands. And when they're slapping five, and you totally different backgrounds, totally different ethnicities, different everything, and the common denominator is your passion for a team, and it's pretty cool and it's pretty powerful. And this Sunday, I think the Super Bowl itself, forget whether you're a Patriot or Giant fan, you're just somebody sitting in Wyoming who has no rooting interest in the game. I guarantee you there will be families who sit down in front of the TV who don't ever get together, teenage kids, mother, father, grandparents, young kids, who as a family unit, there's just no, life's too fast, they're texting each other, but they're going to sit down in front of the TV sometime between 1 when the pregame stuff starts and 6:30 when it kicks off, and until the thing ends, and they're going to experience it together. And they're going to talk about Madonna's performance, whether they like
Right.
Madonna or hate Madonna or are neutral on Madonna, and they're going to critique it. And they're going to be doing it.
Or Brady's wife versus Manning's wife and all that
versus
stuff.
Manning's
Yeah,
wife,
they
or-
love that stuff.
Or the commercials.
The commercials,
They're going to
yeah.
talk about the commercials, and they're going to have that experience that other than maybe holidays or like weddings, but then you got too many people. It's a platform that's really unique and special, and we know we're privileged. We pinch ourselves every day. Robert says it a lot. I do. We pinch ourselves every day because we did sit up in the metal benches in Foxborough, and to be in this business and to be able to have a small impact on it. We just feel so fortunate because we know that it is impacting people all across the country like that.
5 Super Bowls in 11 years. The next one, Sunday, it's going to be a stadium full of Colts fans and Giants fans. But there will be a couple Patriot fans there, hopefully. And I'm very excited for this. As I told you before we started taping, this Patriots team, I like when they're in a hostile atmosphere. I think it brings the best out of Brady. I have a good feeling about how angry it's going to be in there and how it's going to affect the team in a good way.
I think it's going to be an away game. And,
I'm ready.
And I think you're right about Brady. And if I was looking at a turning point of this season, it was a similar type of thing. We lost to the Steelers and then the Giants at Gillette. Steelers in Pittsburgh, Giants at Gillette. Our defense was really banged up. And we went down to New York for a Sunday night game against the Jets, where the Jets, it was like week 8 or week 7, and the Jets could have taken maybe week 9. It was 7, 8, 9, 8 or 9. If the Jets won, they could have taken control of the division. And we went down there, and I think we started 5 or 6 undrafted rookie free agents on defense, 3 of whom hadn't even been on the team 2 weeks before. And the Jets were on a roll. And that stadium's hostile when we're down there, and we beat them pretty good, and we haven't lost since. And I think Tommy had a great night. The defense had a great night. I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday.
I picked the Patriots that game because I was like, oh, everybody's picking against Belichick and Brady? Okay.
Well, maybe
I've been down this road before.
Maybe that'll work, but I think you're right. I think Tommy doesn't like it when things are perfect. I mean, Tommy's unbelievable all the time, but I think there's something that really clicks with him, and maybe it's what his whole background has been and how he was overlooked. But when you're in an environment that isn't perfect, he takes it to another level.
Jonathan Kraft, thanks for your time, and we'll come back with part 2 from the Bud Light Hotel in Indy. Kevin Wildes is going to do some half-baked ideas with my buddy Joe House. Until then.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Pod Center at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.